McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Real people, real opinions. Real Talk Radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.
Irene Grealy is Director of Multi-Cargo Limited. Now, she's been with the company since the beginning, and they provide air and sea and road transport services. They also have a reputation for taking on the work that the others won't, so to speak. The larger companies in the industry can tend to turn down, such as live animals, sadly human remains. And they also work with bands touring the country, which I'm sure is quite exciting too. But Irene works full-time on the live animal and human remains services, and she joins me now. Irene, good evening to you.
Good evening, Niall. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a very interesting job, because I always love people with interesting and unusual jobs, and I'm sure they get to see quite interesting things. Let's deal with the animals first, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to go away in holidays and you want to bring the dog with you, or you want to move and you want to bring the dog with you, and you're going outside of... I'm assuming it's different outside the EU and within the EU. I'm assuming it's different, is it?
It is, yeah. It is. I mean, within the EU, obviously you can move with an EU pet passport to any EU country. That's the only documentation that you're going to require.
And to get that, how do you get a passport? You just apply, and I'm assuming your dog has to be inoculated.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, the requirement for travel within the EU, you're going to have a rabies vaccination. No matter what, dog, cats, and ferrets can be covered under an EU pet passport.
Okay.
And a rabies vaccination is required, and then there's a 21-day wait before they're allowed to travel.
Okay. Now, when you say they're allowed to travel, where can they travel? Is there any airlines that... I know some of the American airlines on internal flights allow some dogs on board, but are there any Irish airlines or European airlines that allow the dogs basically sit on your lap?
There are possibly one or two that will allow them in cabin. There's a difference here. Dublin Airport does not allow pets travel out of Dublin Airport as excess baggage. Now, my company, we deal with manifested cargo pets, so we would actually transport pets as cargo. We don't really get involved in the passenger accompanied pets, because people are responsible for their own pets.
Right.
But in 2021, Dublin Airport, there was a new... Now, I'm only speaking on this from what we were told, but there was a new the belt that brings live animals from and baggage that brings them from the check-in desk down to the actual cargo area where they would be loaded into the baggage hold. They changed the infrastructure of that, and it became unsafe for a live animal in a crate to travel through that network.
Okay.
So Dublin Airport put a stop on pets being taken out as excess baggage.
Right.
So that would be excess baggage means that you've bought a ticket and you've paid an extra fee, and you turn up and you check in your pet.
Your cat is in a box or whatever it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. In cabin is different. In cabin is where they will. It's much the same. You've bought a ticket. You show up with your pet, this tiny little thing that will fit under the seat where your handbag would go.
Okay.
And that would be in cabin. There's some airlines still allow in cabin, but they don't. Dublin Airport doesn't allow excess baggage, if that makes sense.
The funniest thing I've ever seen, actually, many years ago, I went on an Aeroflot. There were Russian airlines.
Yeah.
They should have been called Aeroflop because of the amount of them that crashed. But Aeroflot, and it was so rough. But there was some guy had a donkey on the plane in the cabin.
Oh, wow! I remember seeing a photograph from years ago. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when United Airlines, they literally allowed everything from in cabin excess baggage and emotional support.
Oh, okay. Right, emotional support.
Somebody rocked up with an emotional support peacock. And there was a photograph that was displayed of that, an emotional support peacock. But they couldn't deny it because they allowed it.
Of course.
That's not allowed out of Ireland anyway.
Okay, so in your department, you're dealing with the cargo. So
yeah.
So what happens? So I
cargo.
arrive with Rover, and I have a passport for Rover, and we're only going to Europe. So Rover, I'm assuming, is put into a crate.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and the crate has to be sized to the dog or a cat or whatever pet it's going to be. So obviously, the crates come in different shapes and sizes, and they are determined by the size of the pet involved. So you can go from like a small little Yorkshire Terrier up to a large, say, Golden Retriever. And the crates come. A lot of them are pre-manufactured plastic crates, and you can buy them in a pet store in some ways, or we supply them. We do have them in stock.
Yeah. And who feeds them? I mean, who waters them and feeds them?
Well, water is always supplied. Like with every pet that travels as manifested cargo, there is a container attached to the door of the crate.
Oh, okay.
You wouldn't really want them to be fed while they're not going to be fed on the plane. They're going into the cargo hold.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be fed on the aircraft.
Yeah.
And with all due respect, it's probably best that they're not.
Yeah.
Like I would advise my clients.
Of course.
I would advise my clients not, like, and I would always send out an itinerary to my clients. I'd say, please don't feed your pet just before they travel. Let them have a walk or a litter tray or something like that before you bring them up, because if they soil the crate, I mean, the crate could be refused being loaded onto an aircraft, so
right. Okay.
So we would always say, take them for a walk,
let them clean themselves out a bit. Yeah, let them clean themselves out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, by the way, is it cold in the cargo hold? Is it like
it has to be an ambient temperature. So, there's some flights where that wouldn't be equipped to carry a live animal. Like with a lot of the, say, for example, like I don't want to name particular airlines, but some airlines would not have a cargo hold that would have a temperature control.
Okay.
And if they don't have a temperature control, they can't carry a live animal.
That wouldn't be safe.
Obviously, yeah.
It'd be freezing.
Exactly. So they can't load. You simply cannot load a pet into an aircraft that doesn't have temperature control, and it's ambient. So it's like it's between say 10 to 15 to 20 degrees, and it fluctuates. So it maintains the temperature inside the
and so if I'm going on holidays and I'm bringing Rover with me for 3 weeks, do I just drop Rover off with you? Does he go on the same flight as me, or does he go on a different flight? And can I collect him straight away at the airport when I land, or is it a case of having to wait a couple of days, or how does that work? Does Rover go on the same flight?
Well, it depends on the airline. I mean, if the airline is carrying, there's not many cargo flights, like just full cargo flights that go out of Dublin Airport anymore. So, I mean, if the flight is going to a holiday destination like Malaga or Lisbon, one of those destinations, and that aircraft carries a live animal, then yes, we can book your flight, your pet on that same aircraft. But it is travelling as manifested cargo, so you drop your pet off at the cargo terminal.
Yeah.
And then you collect on the other side at the cargo terminal. So it's not done through the baggage system.
Oh no, I know. I get that.
Yeah.
So the other thing as well, has Brexit made any difference to travelling to the UK with an animal?
Well, to be honest, and to all the years that we've been doing this, it's very, very rare. The UK is not one of our biggest markets for transporting pets, particularly on flights, because basically you can just take the ferry.
You can just take the boat.
If somebody, and most people do. And we would recommend that, to be honest, particularly at the moment with Brexit, because you can travel over on the ferry with an EU pet passport.
Yeah.
If you go in an aircraft, or if you want us to book your flight, your pet on an aircraft, then you're going in and you have to deal with the UK customs, and you have to deal with the UK compliance checks as well, because that now is part of the process.
Okay.
It's much the same if there's pets coming in from the UK. If they come in on a flight, we have to put them through EU compliance, which is a veterinary check. But if you're going back, if you are an accompanied, if your pet is accompanied going on the ferry, then you can go over and back with an EU pet passport. It's very, very
Okay,
simple.
somebody just texted in, by the way, and said, they said, ask the girl what is needed to get a passport for a dog. So where would you get that? Do you get it from the vet or something? Do you get it from a vet?
Yeah, your local vet would just usually provide an EU pet passport. They fill out the first couple of pages. They do the vaccination, the rabies vaccination, and there you go. A lot of vets would just have them.
Okay.
Have them in stock. Yeah.
Okay, so
and they just provide it, and
that's within the EU. Outside the EU, I'm going to America, and I'm bringing Rover with me. Rover. Yeah. But by the way, I don't even have a dog called Rover. I'm just so Rover's coming to America with me. What's the plan? How do I get to America with Rover?
Rover, well, actually, the US is probably one of the easiest destinations to get to from Ireland from a paperwork point of view, because the US actually recognises Ireland as rabies free. But even at that, we still recommend everybody get their pets,
vaccinated.
Yeah, obviously for rabies. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of direct flights going out of Dublin Airport into various airports within the US. So we use them all the time. And they are not cargo flights; they're passenger flights. So we use them all the time going into the US. So it's
same
US
situation.
Is very easy. All they really need is a health certificate, vaccination record, and off they pop. Yeah.
And whatever happened to the days years ago when people used to say, "Oh, if you bring your dog on holidays, they have to go into quarantine for 60 days or all that kind of nonsense." Does that still happen?
No, there's no quarantine really anymore in Ireland if they're coming in, no matter where they're coming from. The only reason why a pet would be quarantined coming back into Ireland would be if they don't have a proper rabies vaccination and they don't have the correct paperwork.
And is there other countries? What other countries that we might be going to? Will they have to be? Is there other countries that have quarantine laws that you have to put your pet? Okay, so which countries?
Australia is one where it's a mandatory either 10 days or possibly now they've actually increased the quarantine stay for some animals will have to do 30 days. And New Zealand is one where quarantine is mandatory as well. So it's usually 10 days in New Zealand.
Okay.
But Australia have changed their rules. Australia now is one of the most popular destinations for people going out. I mean, and they have changed their rules over the last couple of months, and it's a busy country to try and get into at the moment for live animals.
Okay, so be prepared. If you're going to Australia, you're going to be without Rover for 10 days.
Oh, more than that. Well, I mean, the process itself takes approximately 7 months, but with the delay with permits at the moment, if there are people out there who are considering moving to Australia, you're going to get started on the process.
Okay.
Right away.
Right, so do it months in advance.
Up to a year.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the process itself, from a veterinary point of view, and I'm not a vet, but we do work with the vets all the time, and we have to go through this process. But from a veterinary point of view, and the process required, it's a minimum from a rabies vaccination to the day you travel of approximately 7 months.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have to get a rabies vaccination, rabies blood test, and from the date the rabies blood test is received at the lab, it's 180 days. So effectively 6 months from that date to the first day you're allowed to travel.
Okay. So in other words, what you're saying to me is,
10 days,
you're not bringing Rover on holidays to Australia. If you want to move to Australia, well and good.
No.
But you're not bringing them on holidays.
Absolutely not. No,
okay.
People don't bring them. No.
So what's by the way, what's the weirdest request you've ever got for an animal?
Oh my! Wow. Well, I've shipped a lot of animals in our time. I think the weirdest animal I've ever and I actually enjoy telling the story, but we actually shipped a pet frog to the US. Yeah, a pet frog. Yeah. Okay. This lady, she couldn't live without her pet frog, and that was probably one of the strangest ones. But we've flown so many animals, like dogs, cats, birds. Snakes, lizards, all sorts of reptiles.
Yeah.
Cattle. We've No, we don't get into the
You don't do the livestock. No, you don't
the
do that.
cattle.
Okay.
We don't do it. That's and we don't do the horses either. That's all very specialized transport. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other thing you do, as well as animals, that's a lot of advice for people going away on holidays or going away to live. If you're bringing human remains, I know I don't want to be insensitive here, right? But it is a problem.
No.
People die on holidays sometimes, or they die abroad. When somebody's coming from abroad and they've passed away and they're coming back in a coffin or a box or whatever it is, they casket, they come in, do they have to have a passport?
I would imagine so. Now, the part that I play in regards to the human remains, I would be on the export point. So I would be kind of sending people home.
Okay.
I don't really get involved in them coming in.
Oh, okay. But if you're sending them home, do they have to have a passport?
Yeah. They do. They usually have their passports cancelled, yes.
Right, okay.
Their passports will be cancelled most of the time by the embassies. Yeah. There's a lot of paperwork involved, yeah. The funeral directors that we work with, they would get involved. They obviously are involved. We work on behalf of the funeral directors. They do a lot of the paperwork which is required for preparing the remains to be transported, and then we make the arrangements for the bookings, the flights to get these people home.
I know it's a very difficult time for people when that kind of thing happens, but how common? I mean, like, is it a busy business to be to be transporting human remains? In other words, people who come here for a holiday or people who move here and die and have to be shipped back home again to be buried. Is it common? Like, is it once a day? How common is it?
Yeah, it's quite common. Yeah, we would have a couple of weeks. I would say. Yeah. It is quite common. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there's a lot of foreign nationals in Ireland, and if they decide, or the family decides, if there is and like a lot of them might be elderly people who have lived here and they want to go home to be buried, or it's a tragic circumstance. A lot of them are tragic circumstances.
Yeah.
And they need to be repatriated home. As I say, with everything, somebody has to do it. So,
and who pays for it, by the way? I mean, if the families don't have the money, because it can be expensive, I'm sure. Do the Department of Foreign Affairs pay for some of that, or?
I can't answer that question, to be honest.
Okay.
I work with the funeral directors, and the funeral directors would, we would bill the funeral directors, and that is arranged by them. So
so they'd have to apply for it.
Generally, it's very rare that I would have to actually deal with the families directly myself.
Yeah.
Because the funeral directors would be dealing with that end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and the arrangements that have to be made, again, without being too insensitive, to putting a human remains in the hold for, well, if it's a long flight, if it's a long haul flight, I suppose there has to be preparations made in relation to that, isn't there? There has to be, I'm sure there's restrictions and preparations to be made in relation to that if it's long haul.
Well, not particularly. I mean, with once the flights are booked, I mean, there's a lot of respect given to the handling and the loading of a human remains. To the point that we're checking one in, and they have to be prepared. Obviously, it's very difficult to sort of just say it outright as to the preparation. There's a lot of preparation that has to go down, and the funeral directors have to do all of that. And there's a lot of funeral directors in Ireland that I work with, and they have done this before. So the preparation is all done, and it's done very.
I know
well.
You're not involved in the inward cases, but I know there was a bit of a hoo-ha going back a few years ago, when Aer Lingus, who always used to do it for free for expats who were being brought home, but then they suddenly started charging. And I know there was a huge hoo-ha over that people weren't happy about the fact that they're charging people, because I'm assuming it has to be paid for. I mean, it takes up space on the plane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, none of that happens. Nothing happens for free anymore.
No, those days are long gone.
No, nothing happens for free. But the airlines are very considerate. I mean, the likes of live animals and human remains would be classed as priority cargo. So, other cargo could be removed in order to accommodate a human remains travelling home. I mean, they are very considerate in that respect. And I have to say, like, the handling of a human remains is always very, I like to think when I'm handling one, and, you know, because I see them, I meet them at the cargo terminal, and I see them into the warehouse as well. So we like to think we do it in the most dignified manner that we can, considering the fact that it is travelling as manifest cargo,
The other thing your company does, Multi-Cargo Limited, is, now I know you're not involved in the bands, live tours.
Oh, well, I was for a long time. No, we've done a lot of that work. Yeah, we do a lot of the music industry. The live animals has kind of taken over my life, to be honest. But I've been around for a long time, so we have done a lot, and we still do a lot of the music industry. All right.
Okay, big names. Any big names?
Well, we did Garth Brooks last year. I think that's probably one of the biggest gigs we've ever done in our careers. Yeah,
and they would have like 2 and 3 container loads full of stuff, wouldn't they? I mean.
Oh no, that was enormous. Last year it was enormous. I don't know how many containers came in, but there was a huge amount. That was the biggest gig ever that we've ever handled.
Yeah.
You know, and we have done some of the big sleighing gigs. We've done a lot. Like, I don't want to be dropping names, but
drop a few names. You might as well there.
A huge amount. Well, we've done. I mean, at the moment, like, I know we had the Lumineers gear in for this weekend's gig in St. Anne's, and that was a massive amount of equipment that came in as well. So my colleague Kieran is actually managing all of that at the moment. So.
I always wondered. I think a lot of these bands, a lot of these big bands, the big ones, the likes of the Garth Brooks of this world, or the big artists, they probably have 2 or 3 sets of gear. And essentially, because you often hear like a tour, they'll be in the 3 Arena in Dublin tonight and they're in Berlin tomorrow night. And you're going, there's no way they're going to get all that down, back up again in Berlin by tomorrow night. It's just not possible. So I'm assuming a lot of them would have 2 sets of gear or 3 sets of gear. Yeah, they must.
Well, what they would possibly use is they may not use the full equipment. So you could, a lot of, like, some bands would start their tour in Dublin, and then once they come in and they clear, like, even like equipment, music equipment and all that kind of, that actually requires customs processes, and they actually, it's called a carnet or an ATA carnet, and that is effectively a music industry, it's like a passport for your music equipment.
Yeah.
And it lists. So when a band goes on tour, they issue this carnet, an ATA carnet, and they list all the equipment within the carnet. And they can send the entire carnet, say, for starting into Dublin. And then maybe they will send only part of it then to a smaller gig in London or Munich or wherever. And the rest of it would then be tour trucked to wherever the next gig is after that. So it really depends. But so it can be, but it is effectively, they do travel under, their equipment travels under a passport. Because you imagine if you had to go into and deal with customs every
single time. That'd be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no.
What's in that box? What's in that box? Can I see in that box? Give me a look at your guitar.
Yeah.
So it's essentially like a waiver. It's kind of like we trust them. It's a waiver, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is subject to customs scrutiny. So, I mean, if when they go into countries, like they are subject to customs exam. So,
so they can be randomly checked.
The value of the, Oh yeah, they can, and a lot of times they would be fully examined as well. So by customs to make sure that everything on the carnet is as described.
Yeah, somebody has sent in a question here, but I don't think you'll know the answer to this one, right?
Yeah.
No, you won't know the answer. I don't think it is. I think he's just wondering, why is it when he gets stuff delivered to his door, sometimes he gets charged VAT and sometimes he doesn't? I would say to that person, thank your lucky stars, you're not getting charged the VAT all the time because you're meant to be charged.
Well, I can actually answer that because I am a customs broker by trade. So
there you go. You answer that, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you buy something from outside the EU over a certain value, your product is subject to 23% VAT. So if you are coming into, if you buy something, it comes through the parcel post down in Portlaoise, you probably get a letter or some advice note that tells you that this product has arrived and you will be subject to 23% VAT.
But it's quite random, isn't it?
and
I've often got stuff, stuff coming in from China, wherever it is, right? Wish or wherever you're buying stuff, right? And sometimes you'll be hit with a bill, and other times you're just not, and it could be exactly the same item. So it's quite random, isn't it?
That's if it comes. A lot of it comes through the parcel post. If it was to come by air freight or by courier or something like that, it would be most likely subject to VAT because we are scrutinised by customs. We have to clear everything that comes through Dublin Airport has to be cleared. But in the post, they might let something through. But if it goes over a certain value, in most cases, it would be subject to VAT.
I remember I had a woman on the radio there.
23%.
I had a woman on the radio there about 2 years ago, and she said that her sister had sent a load of Christmas presents over for her kids for Christmas, and she got a VAT bill. And I said, well, because they obviously valued the stuff, at over a certain amount of money, even though they were gifts for Christmas for their children. And I thought that was a bit unfair, but I know they're still items, they're still of value, and that's the way the customs look at it, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Like if you fill out like your customs form and you declare, a value of like, a couple of $100 or a couple of hundred euros or something like that, it is likely that they would be subject to taxes.
So what did you say the limit was again? So I'm warning people not to write anything more than that on it.
I'm not sure what the limit is. I'm not sure how the parcel post actually do it, but I think it's the ones that goes over about €100 or €200 or something like that. But I mean, I think it depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they would just charge. I mean, that's happened to me as well, and I'm a customs broker. I could have cleared it myself. I am a glutton for the internet buying myself as well. So
I think everybody is now.
Me too,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, look, it's an interesting job, cargoing around animals and human remains, and animals including rodents and birds and zoo animals. By the way, I've never asked you about the zoo animals, so I'm assuming. I get the odd zebra or chimpanzee or something like that, or.
We've done a few. Well, I haven't actually had a chimpanzee. I'd love to get one of them, but we have done a few primates, all right. But we do work in conjunction with the zoos and the wildlife parks, where they do require our services for customs clearance. And as you mentioned earlier, with regards to Brexit, some of these conservation animals who would be coming in and out of, for breeding purposes, would be coming across and back from the UK zoos. So they are now subject to, obviously Department of Agriculture clearance and customs. So we do get involved. We do get involved with just handling the paperwork. We don't always see the animals coming through. We just do the paperwork, make sure that when they go through the port, that the paperwork is correct.
Is it stressful for an animal, by the way? Is it stressful for an animal to be in the hold? I'm assuming there's not much light in the hold. I don't know what the hold is like. But I mean, the same thing, as a human, when you're going up, your ears go pop and all that kind of carry on. Do you think it's stressful for an animal because they don't understand?
I possibly. Yeah. I can't deny that, but I find, because I see them being checked in at Dublin Airport, and I'm lucky enough to have the pleasure of reuniting families here, because we do their customs clearance here, and we clear them through Dublin Airport as well. And in a lot of cases, like once you leave, like if you leave your house and your dog is at home, Rover, as you mentioned, and if you leave your dog at home and you go off to the shops or something like that, or come back, your dog's probably asleep on the floor. It's much the same if you put them in a crate. If I always recommend, people acclimate their pets to their crate.
Yeah.
So get the crate early, use the crate, let them sleep in the crate. It becomes their sanctuary. So when you put them in the first time, if they're shipping on that particular day and you're just putting them into a crate for the first time ever, they're actually going to just look at you and go, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
In their own special little way. So I would always recommend, if you can, acclimate your pet to the crate first of all. And then it becomes their sanctuary. So once the owners leave, because like a lot of times we would let the owners leave when we're checking in the pets, and the tears have because there's often a bit of crying going on.
Of course there is,
I can't deny that. But then the pets do tend to just settle down and they relax. And even when we see them coming in from flights coming in as well, and we clear them to customs and we get them out, a lot of times they're just sleeping, and they are quite chilled. And then we get them out, we take them out for a walk, and we let them. Well, obviously dogs only. We don't take cats out for a walk. But we do take
risky.
No, we certainly wouldn't do that. No, scary moment. But no, we would. We always take the dogs out for a walk before we hand them over, or send them off on delivery or that. But so they do travel well.
Is it expensive, by the way? Am I allowed to ask you how much it costs? Is it expensive to?
It is expensive. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that either. I mean, a cargo in this day and age is expensive no matter what. Specialised cargo is quite expensive as well.
Like, how much would it cost to send Rover? Like, if Rover's going to Spain or Malaga with me, how much would it cost me to bring Rover?
Well, if Rover's a small little dog, I suppose it would probably cost. You wouldn't get a lot of change one way. I'm just going to stress this one way. You wouldn't get a lot of change. It's possibly about €800 or €900.
Wow!
And then you've got to pay that coming back as well. Yeah.
Rover's staying at home.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not as easy anymore, Niall, because it used to be a case where you could take your pet as excess baggage. And you just paid that little extra €100, €160, whatever it was.
Yeah, you threw them on the conveyor belt.
On top of your ticket. But that's not available anymore. So it's not really, for a lot of people, it's not economically viable to take your pet.
Yeah, now Rover's staying at home. That's it now. Rover's going to a pet hotel.
My Danny would be staying at home as well, yeah. There's no doubt about it. But, it isn't economically viable to take them on holidays. For a 2-week holiday, to Malaga or somewhere like that. It really isn't. Because you've got to pay it coming back as well.
Yeah.
But if you were going somewhere for 6 months, like we have some clients who might be coming home for the summer and then they'll go back in September to US, United Arab Emirates. A lot of people travel over and back and do that, and their pets come in, we clear them in, and then we send them back out, when they're going back out.
Well, that would be worth it if you're going for 6 months or whatever, yeah.
It is for a time like that, it is. Because they are part of the family, and it's probably cheaper than boarding as well for 6 months. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, it's been lovely talking to you. It's been very interesting. I'm sure it's a really interesting job, by the way. I'd love to do that for a day.
Well, as I say, it's never a dull moment.
No, I would imagine not. Yeah. Irene Grealy, Director of Multi Cargo Limited. If people want to find them, I'm sure you'll find they have a website. Do you have a website? I'm sure you do have a website.
We do, yeah. For the pets, we do have an email. It's pets@multicargo.ie. We do have a website, yeah, we do indeed. We haven't been very active on social media because it's just been so busy over the last couple of I was listening to your conversations about COVID there, and like post-COVID, I've never been as busy as I have been in my life with transporting live animals. And it's not just me, but there's other agents in Dublin as well, so we're all in the same boat.
Yeah. Well, I think business is back booming again in the air transport industry and the holiday industry.
Well, it is, yeah. But people are moving. People are moving around.
Yeah, of course. They might have held off. They might have held off for a couple of years, and now they're just all doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of people who came back to Ireland who can't settle and are then going back to wherever they came from as well. So, I mean, yeah, people are moving. But pets@multicargo.ie is our email address. So,
okay.
I hope I've given you some information.
Pets. Okay, remember that, everybody. Pets@multicargo.ie. And if you go to the website, I'm sure they have a website. You can go to Multicargo. You just Google them. Multicargo.
Yeah, multicargo.ie is our website. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely talking to you, Irene. Thank you very much indeed for chatting to us tonight.
Thank you, Niall. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye.
Real people, real opinions, Real Talk Radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.